Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining my channel, and I'm very excited to talk about today's discussion. Uh, it's been a while since I've posted something on my YouTube channel, and so again, for people who are new to my channel, it is just talking about things like theology, apologetics, maybe some politics and ideology, and other things that that interest me, and I think that are of interest to my audience as well. So it's been a while since I posted something, but again, for my posts, I usually just go off the top of my head. I don't know where my conversation is going to lead or where I'm going to end up, um, but usually we end up talking about some interesting things on this channel. So I'm looking forward to in the future having some videos with other people, bringing in some other voices, both people who agree with me and people who disagree with me, to have good conversations. So um, today, what we're going to be talking about is something that I was kind of looking into today, um, which is the Jeffrey Epstein uh, phenomenon, I guess, is for lack of a better word. And we're going to be just talking about him and kind of what is going on with that, because in my mind it's a big mystery. I don't think I have a lot of answers. Frankly, I haven't researched him a bunch, or his his industry, what he did, but I know that in my heart of hearts, I know that he was an evil man and he did um, wicked, unspeakable things to young women. And but one thing that is scary, is that he was in a lot of ways above reproach. He A lot of people were invested in him as a person, and he was surrounded by a network of really powerful, influential, and wealthy people. And I kind of look at those three types of people as the powerful, which would be politicians. He was surrounded by a lot of politicians, um, wealthy people who are billionaires, who are um, owning monopolies, and influential, so celebrities, movie stars, artists. And he was connected on all of these fronts. So he was a man of immense power. A man of huge connections, and that was why so many of the allegations that were brought against him were kind of just dismissed for a long time. I think for like a decade or something, he was just able to kind of evade the law because all the people who were responsible with bringing him to justice, or excuse me, were responsible for bringing him to justice, were the people that he was connected to. And it's strange talking about this kind of thing because it verges on the conspiracy side. It kind of, which is interesting to me because I just don't understand how deep the rabbit hole goes, because I know that there are people on the right, who I strongly disagree with, who have kind of whacked out crazy ideas. I'm kind of thinking of like QAnon, that type of that type of like conspiracy minded material. Um, and some of the things that they believe is that there's like a grand conspiracy within maybe Hollywood or within the government, where there's devil worship, where there's demon worship, and that the enemy, who Christians call the enemy, Satan, is behind the scenes pulling strings on these really powerful and influential people. And so there's a little bit of that kind of makes us smirk just as common sense people, but based on a biblical understanding alone, we know that our struggle is not just against flesh and blood, it's against the powers, the principalities, the dominions the spiritual forces of darkness that compel the world system and compel people to act in certain ways and to do certain things and to influence people in a certain way, to commit crimes and atrocious acts. And I think like what really baffles people about Jeffrey Epstein is the fact that his crimes were so the scope of them was so vast that it boggles the mind. Also, his connections were so vast, and the way that he was able to escape the law for so long. He had billions of dollars. He had his own island, which I'm hoping this video will be a little shorter, but he had his own island, which was full of. He would bring celebrities to this island. He would bring his connections to this island, and on that island, really shady stuff was going on. I said shady, shady, but it could be the other one that it sounded like. That was all that stuff was going on. He was bringing underage girls to this island, and presumably because he had been alleged of raping. Excuse me, I should say sexually assaulting women, but yeah, that's what he was doing. So, and that's the thing that I want to get into in this video. I'm going to try to really start being more, I don't want to say politically correct, because I think that word, it causes, the R word causes people to get angry, but what really should make us angry is that people who like ask questions about Epstein and about the people who he was associated with, the Clintons, like all sorts of left-leaning politicians, especially. When you ask too many questions, people accuse you of like reading too deep into it or being a conspiracy theorist or something. But it's like, wait, hold on. These are the people who are controlling our daily life. They're the ones that are making all the decisions that impact our entire country and how we run our nation. And if these people like are connected to such an evil man, who and what all the evidence points to, like many of them were engaging in the same type of behavior with him, and that behavior was being hidden. Shouldn't that cause us to ask questions? Why aren't we allowed to ask more questions about this? Why aren't we allowed to know the truth? And this is all I want this channel to be about, is like the truth. And I want to think through these things. Obviously, I don't know all the facts behind it. I don't know who was engaging in sexual assaults and who wasn't. I don't know who was worshiping demons and who wasn't. I don't know these questions, and I don't think a lot of these questions we'll ever know. A lot of them are a big mystery, and that's what kind of draws people to this question, is the mystery. And so I think like there is a lot of philosophical questions ethical questions obviously, but also philosophical questions and even theological questions that dive into demonology and all sorts of things that we could start asking when we look at this single person who had huge connections with all these powerful people, and he also had it seems like very strange behavior in his personal life, besides the obvious evil of sexually assaulting underage girls. He was a really odd person. I mean, on his island, he had a temple at the highest point of the island with I believe there was a statue of Moloch or an owl or something. All across this island, he had strange things. He had a massage parlor that was hidden by these palm trees. I may disclose a link in this video that shows these people, these independent journalists who snuck onto Epstein Island and were walking around after Epstein's after his arrest and conviction. They were filming his island and showing all these things. Like there was a chamber that went into his island that he filled with concrete. And I guess he spent millions of dollars filling it with concrete as well. There were statues all over his island of these little. When I saw the statue, I was like, "That's an imp." Like they're like little demons, just kind of peppering his island. And so a lot of people for centuries, for thousands of years, have seen these creatures. You know, they're not obviously creatures that we can put into a test tube and see, but that people have seen these creatures like they're related to sleep paralysis and stuff, and they're little demons that are 3 feet tall. And so anyways, those are they're when I saw the statue of it, I was like, that's an imp, right? And so he has statues of these things, but not only that, but he also has statues of the goddess of the Sidonians and Ashtoreth. He has, I think, 2 or 3 statues. There's probably more. 2 or 3 statues of this woman. And so that was in the Bible. If you look at the Bible, all throughout the Bible, there were kind of 2, like a male and female Baal counterpart to one another. It was Moloch and Ashtoreth, and they were these really evil demons who were able to influence people to make sacrifices to them, sacrifice even their children into the fires of Moloch, and so that opens up a whole different dimension to this inquiry of like, what does the abortion industry have to do with this. So there was like this with Moloch. They were rolling their children into the arms of Moloch, and they would go down into this fiery furnace and be burned, right? And then the female counterpart was Ashtoreth, but her name has many variations, and she actually was traded to different nations, and she kind of took on different forms. Her name took on different forms and meanings to different nations, but basically she was like this. She was this goddess that they would build idols of, like giant statues, and the Israelites were often led astray as well, and so she was worshipped by like the Canaanites and other nations, even like the Babylonians, and I think her lineage, or I say lineage, but her history goes all the way back to early on in Genesis, with the Sumerians were talking about this goddess, and then she was reproduced even after the 1st century, after Christianity, in different cultures and nations, and so it's just strange. Like it sounds really weird to say that, but she's actually, still has some pull over people, and people know about her. Multiple different variations on her name, so it's kind of, people can say, no, we're not talking about Ashtoreth, we're talking about Ishtar, but she's basically the same person, or demon. And so what was happening with idolatry this back in the Bible was people would worship these statues and these images, and the statues and images actually had no power in themselves, but they were representing a real spiritual power, spiritual darkness, and oftentimes the worship of them could like bring about a demon and a spiritual power. So there was the idol, which in itself was mute and didn't have any power on its own, and then there was like the spiritual force behind it. And I'm not a demonologist, and I really don't want to care that much about demons and those works of the enemy. Like, those are not my interests. I want to focus on the Lord. But at the same time, like, what does this mean for now? Like, if the Bible is true, which as Christians we know is true, and it says our battle's not against flesh and blood, but it's against the powers that are kind of behind the scenes, controlling everything, kind of keeping us in the dark, deceiving humanity, and demanding things of humanity, influencing humanity into acting evilly and carrying out these desires of the demons, right? And so, like, what does that mean when you have somebody who is like so connected, so influential? In a way, you could say he was running the world, because he had those three different spheres: power, wealth, and influence at his disposal. He was friends with one of the presidents of the United States, actually multiple presidents of the United States, and he was friends with British royalty as well. And so all these people were involved with him. And on his island, he has statues of demons everywhere. He has statues of Ashtoreth, who, like, if we look at the Bible, these demons were compelling Israel to sin. And so Ashtoreth was the goddess of sexual immorality, and the goddess of fertility, the goddess of war. She was the goddess of all these things, right? And those aren't, like, fun things. So, and Moloch was kind of the male counterpart, and he was the god of, I don't know what, I don't really care, but all I know is that people would roll their children down into a fiery furnace in Moloch's stomach or whatever. Like, they would basically feed their children to the idol of Moloch. And so these themes of, like, child sacrifice and and sexual immorality, but on such a exponential scale, as with Jeffrey Epstein, who had sexually assaulted dozens, if not hundreds, of young girls. Even if they were of age, it was still sexually assaulting them. And to be engaging in this level of evil, this level of behavior, and then what we see with the way that governments, our government here in America especially, is trying to influence policy and move towards this kind of globalist shift. It raises more questions than I can ever find the answers to, and I don't think I'll ever know the answers to these. But in my mind, it helps reinforce the idea that, yeah, we are fighting against more than just people. We are battling against these spiritual forces that are really trying to control and even destroy humanity, trying to destroy God's most treasured part of his creation, which is men and women, which is people. And it's doing that in so many ways right now. It's turning people against each other so that people hate their brothers, hate their sisters, hate their neighbors. The enemy is waging war against children, from the top down and from the bottom up, with abortion, and also with, like, the sexual campaign on our youth, and forcing kids to wear masks, forcing kids to get vaccinated with this experimental vaccine. Telling people that we should be afraid of children who aren't vaccinated because they're potential coronavirus super spreaders. Yeah, there's so much fear surrounding children, and there's this huge sexual campaign to kind of indoctrinate children with sex ed, but it's actually just sexual propaganda. And there's a couple different instances of that. Now there's the normalization, or kind of the push towards, an incremental push towards normalizing pedophilia with the whole minor attracted persons campaign, to kind of bring that under the LGBTQ umbrella. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the LGBTQ community who reject that notion, but basically, like, pedophiles want to be accepted as, you know, having how do I put this? They want to be acknowledged as like having legitimate sexual preferences for children, and also even in some cases treated as victims. And I mean that's the fact that this is all like unfolding in the last couple years, and it's all kind of on the tail end of this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing where we don't really know what happened with him. You're not really supposed to talk about, hey, like, what's up with that guy? What happened to him in prison? Did he really kill himself, or was he murdered, or what happened to him? And you know, the mainstream media just kind of turns a blind eye to that, and they don't want us to know anything about it. And it's scary stuff. I mean, it's really dark stuff. Even if you're not a Christian and you don't believe that there's a demonic aspect to it, like, it's still scary thinking about who he was, his connections, and that we're not really allowed to question the people that he was connected to. We're not allowed to question these celebrities. Like, they're the people we look to influence us, and they're kind of our idols in a way. We're not supposed to question the Democratic Party and the people who were involved with Epstein and flying out to his island. I mean, yeah, they were flying out and they were getting massages, but probably nothing more than that happened. Yeah, and like I said, we don't know, but yeah, the level of evil that he was involved in is alarming, and anybody who was involved with him, to such a strong degree of like having a friendship with him, like Bill Clinton, who had traveled to his island, I think like 50 times or something. How could he have not known the type of activity that Epstein was involved in? I mean, there's so many questions that we could ask, and I don't know. I don't know that much about him. I could drone on and on and on about it. But just things like this make me know that there is something like behind the scenes that's connecting the abortion industry, the Marxist agenda, the kind of push towards collectivism or collectivization, and also like the sexual propagandizing of everyone, and the people in power who are kind of over it all, who are influencing policy in these matters. There's something like darker behind the scenes, and I think as human beings, it's our job to really like investigate them, whether we're investigating them from a secular viewpoint or from a theological viewpoint. Either way, I mean, there's no justifying the things that Jeffrey Epstein did. It freaked everybody out. But it wasn't just him. There were droves of people who were involved with him. That should freak us out too. Like, these people aren't gonna. They're above reproach. They're not gonna be called out for what, and we're not gonna hear about the mistakes they've made, about the crimes they've committed. They're just gonna get swept under the rug, and they're gonna wash their hands and say, nothing to see here. So anyways, I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed my rants about Epstein, I hope that you will like it and subscribe to my channel. And I try to do multiple uploads a week. I haven't done any in a while, but I'm hoping that will change, and that I'll continue to make these videos, and I hope that they get better going forward in the future. So thank you for watching all the way to the end, and God bless you. Have a good day.